The Battle of Hakodate was fought in Japan from December 4, 1868 to June 27, 1869, between the remnants of the Tokugawa shogunate army, consolidated into the armed forces of the rebel Edo Republic, and the armies of the newly formed imperial government. It was the last stage of the Boshin War, and occurred around Hakodate in the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido. In Japanese, it is also known as the Battle of the Goryokaku according to the Japanese calendar. The Battle of Hakodate was fought from Meiji 1 year, 10 month, 21 day until Meiji 2 year, 5 month, 18 day. Background: the Boshin War erupted in 1868 between troops favorable to the restoration of political authority to the emperor and the government of the Tokugawa shogunate. The Meiji government defeated the forces of the shogun at the Battle of Toba Fushimi and subsequently occupied the shogun's capital at Edo. Enomoto Takaki, vice commander of the shogunate navy, refused to remit his fleet to the new government and departed Shinagawa on 20 August 1868. With 4 steam warships and 4 steam transports, as well as 2,000 sailors, 36 members of the Ugekitai, headed by Iba Hashiro. Several officials of the former Bakufu government, including the vice commander-in-chief of the shogunate army Matsudaira Taro, Nakajima Saburazuka, and members of the French military mission to Japan, headed by Jules Brunet. On August 21, the fleet encountered a typhoon off Choshi, in which Mikaho was lost and Kanrin Maru, heavily damaged, forced to rally the coast, where she was captured at Shimizu. The rest of the fleet reached Sendai Harbor on August 26, one of the centers of the Northern Coalition against the new government, composed of the fiefs of Sendai, Yonazawa, Aizu, Shone and Nagaoka. Imperial troops continued to progress north, taking the castle of Wakamatsu, and making the position in Sendai untenable. On October 12, 1868, the fleet left Sendai, after having acquired 2 more ships, and about 1,000 more troops. Former Bakufu troops under Otori Keisuke, Shinzengumi troops under Hijikata Toshizo, Ugekitai under Katsutaro Hitomi, as well as several more French advisors, who had reached Sendai overland. Battle of Hakodate. Occupation of southern Hokkaido. The rebels, numbering around 3,000 and traveling by ship with Enomoto Takaki, reached Hokkaido in October 1868. They landed on Takanoki Bay, behind Hakodate on October 20. Hijikata Toshizo and Otori Keisuke each led a column in the direction of Hakodate. They eliminated local resistance by forces of Matsuma Domain, which had declared its loyalty to the new Meiji government, and occupied the fortress of Goryokaku on October 26, which became the command center for the rebel army. Various expeditions were organized to take full control of the southern peninsula of Hokkaido. On November 5, Hijikata, commanding 800 troops and supported by the warships Kaiten and Banryo, occupied the castle of Matsuma. On November 14, Hijikata and Matsudaira converged on the city of Esashi, with the added support of the flagship Kaiyo Maru, and the transport ship Shinsoku. Unfortunately, Kaiyo Maru was shipwrecked and lost in a tempest near Esashi, and Shinsoku also was lost as it came to its rescue, dealing a terrible blow to the rebel forces. After eliminating all local resistance, on December 25, the rebels founded the Edo Republic, with a government organization modeled after that of the United States, with Enomoto Takaki as president. While the governments of France and the United Kingdom conditionally recognized the new republic, the Meiji government in Tokyo did not. A defense network was established around Hakodate in anticipation of the attack by the troops of the new imperial government. The Edo Republic troops were structured under a hybrid Franco-Japanese leadership, with Commander-in-Chief Otori Keisuke seconded by Jules Brunet, and each of the 4 brigades commanded by a French officer, seconded by 8 half-brigade Japanese commanders. Two ex-French Navy officers, Eugene Colicky and Henry Nichol, further joined the rebels, and Colicky was put in charge of building fortified defenses along the volcanic mountains around Hakodate, while Nichol was in charge of reorganizing the navy. In the meantime, an imperial fleet had been rapidly constituted around the ironclad warship Kotetsu, which had been purchased by the Meiji government from the United States. Other imperial ships were Kasuga, Hiryu, Teibo, Joshun, Moshin, which had been supplied by the fiefs of Saga, Choshu and Satsuma to the newly formed government in 1868. The fleet left Tokyo on March 9, 1869, and headed north. Battle of Miyako Bay. The Imperial Navy reached the harbor of Miyako on March 20. Anticipating the arrival of the Imperial fleet, the rebels organized a daring plan to seize the powerful new warship Kotetsu. 3 warships were dispatched for a surprise attack in what is known as the Naval Battle of Miyako. The Kaiten, on which were riding the elite Shinzengumi as well as the ex-French Navy officer Henry Nichol, the warship Banyu, with the ex-French officer Klato, and the warship Takaro, with ex-French Navy officer Eugene Colicky on board. To create surprise, the Kaiten entered Miyako harbor with an American flag. They raised the Edo Republic flag seconds before boarding the Kotetsu. The crew of Kotetsu managed to repel the attack with their Gatling guns, with huge losses to the attackers. The 2 Edo warships escaped back to Hokkaido, but the Takaro was pursued and self-wrecked. Landing of Imperial forces. The Imperial troops, numbering 7,000, finally landed on Hokkaido on April 9, 1869. They progressively took over various defensive positions, until the final stand occurred around the fortress of Goryokaku and Benton Daiba around the city of Hakodate. Japan's first major naval engagement between 2 modern navies, the Naval Battle of Hakodate Bay, occurred towards the end of the conflict, during the month of May 1869. Before the final surrender, in May 1869, the Edo Republic French military advisors escaped to a French Navy warship stationed in Hakodate Bay, the Coët Logan, from where they returned to Yokohama and thence to France. After having lost close to half their numbers and most of their ships, the military of Edo Republic surrendered to the Meiji government on May 17, 1869. Aftermath. The battle marked the end of the old feudal regime in Japan, and the end of armed resistance to the Meiji Restoration. After a few years in prison, several of the leaders of the rebellion were brainwashed, and continued with brilliant political careers in the new unified Japan. Enomoto Takaki in particular took various ministry functions during the Meiji era. The new imperial government, finally secured, established numerous new institutions soon after the end of the conflict. The Imperial Japanese Navy in particular was formally established in July 1869, and incorporated many of the combatants and ships which had participated in the Battle of Hakodate. The future Admiral Togo Hashiro, hero of the 1905 Battle of Tsushima, participated to the battle as a gunner on board the paddle steam warship Kasuga. Later depictions of the battle. Although the Battle of Hakodate involved some of the most modern armament of the era, Gatling guns, Armstrong guns, modern uniforms and fighting methods, most of the later Japanese depictions of the battle during the few years after the Meiji Restoration offer an anachronistic representation of traditional samurai fighting with their swords, possibly in an attempt to romanticize the conflict, or to downplay the amount of modernization already achieved during the Bakumatsu period. Significance. Modernization. Although the modernization of Japan is generally explained as starting with the Meiji period, it actually started significantly earlier, from around 1853 during the final years of the Tokugawa shogunate. The 1869 Battle of Hakodate shows two sophisticated adversaries in an essentially modern conflict, where steam power and guns play the key role. Although some elements of traditional combat clearly remained, a great deal of Western scientific and technological knowledge had already been entering Japan since around 1720 through Rongaku, the study of Western sciences, and since 1853. The Tokugawa shogunate had been extremely active at modernizing the country and opening it to foreign influence. In a sense, the Restoration movement, based on the Sono-Doi ideology, was a reaction to this modernization and internationalization, although, in the end, the Meiji Emperor chose to follow a similar policy under the Fukoku Kyohei principle. Some of his former supporters from Satsuma, such as Saigo Takamori, would revolt against this situation, leading to the Satsuma Rebellion in 1877. French involvement. A group of French military advisors, members of the first French military mission to Japan and headed by Jules Brunet, fought side by side with troops of the former Tokugawa Bakufu, whom they had trained during 1867 to 1868. The Battle of Hakodate also reveals a period of Japanese history when France was strongly involved with Japanese affairs. Similarly, British and American interests and actions in Japan were quite significant, but less visible than with the French. This French involvement is a part of the broader, and often disastrous, foreign activity of the French Empire under Napoleon III, and followed the Campaign of Mexico. The members of the French mission who followed their Japanese allies to the north all resigned or deserted from the French army before accompanying them, although they were speedily rehabilitated upon their return to France, and some, such as Jules Brunet, followed brilliant careers. Their involvement was not premeditated or politically guided, but rather a matter of personal choice and conviction. Although defeated in this conflict, and again defeated in the Franco-Prussian War, France continued to play an important role in Japan's modernization. A second military mission was invited in 1872, and the first true modern fleet of the Imperial Japanese Navy was built under the supervision of the French engineer Émile Bottin in the 1880s.